Hey everyone, this is Max at MaxTCG. Thanks for joining me in another video. So in this video, we're going over this Root of the King article. We've already discussed through it and read through this whole article, so I'll have a link in the cards to the video if you want to see that. But what I want to do in this one is actually show the combos visually that are discussed in the article. In this, we're seeing kind of how the OCG is adapting to Infinite Forbidden, how it's affecting the best decks, any changes it's making, and especially how Fiendsmith is making a huge splash in the meta as probably the best engine in the game. So we're going to kind of go through this, show all the combos visually, and kind of look at that because they do give a written breakdown kind of explaining how they start these combos and how they affect it. But I think for a lot of people it's easier to visually see it, and I think there's some interesting discussions to have as we go through the combos. Alright, so what we have here is the OCG amalgamation of kind of all the cards we're going to be discussing today and some different things. So we're discussing the main decks here are Fire King, Yubel, and Pure Snake-Eye. And we're also kind of going over the Fiendsmith engine. We're discussing new cards with Silhouhatte and the Top Hare Hat link. We're going to be discussing some really interesting things you can do with Beatrice and DDD High Wave King Caesar due to the Fiendsmith links. We're discussing the use of the Fiendsmith fusion cards themselves to be ways to play around board breakers. We're also going to discuss ways you can sort normal traps, which can be really good game 2 and 3. Using cards like Angel with blue tears, and you can get a Point of the Red Lotus in the OCG, even though it's banned here. We know why, just seeing your opponent's hand, taking one of their searches, having hand knowledge. Dimensional Barrier for locking people out, and Black Ghost Laughs is a really good just kind of generic normal trap that works in a lot of matchups. So kind of seeing them run these. So a lot of really interesting things to discuss in. We're going to start with going through the Fire King, we'll move to Yubel, and then we'll move to Snake-Eye. So we'll do jump into the first combo. Alright, so in this first combo, we're just looking at Fire King and how they're actually utilizing the Silhouhatte link and the trap card in their strategy. I think it's pretty interesting. It's kind of similar to, I think, what people were doing with Verte, to an extent, letting you play through multiple hand traps and still having interruption. I think this is pretty cool. So just kind of just a mock little setup here, just showing how this could work. I'm having them imperm. I'm using Kieran to dodge. We get Poplar with special summon out. We get hand trapped again. And then there might be better lines you can do here, but for right now we're just going to show a basic, like we just played through 2 hand traps, and we'll go for the Top Hare Hat Silhouette Magician. And this has a cool thing that if this card is link summon, you can set one continuous trap with the effect that special summons itself as a monster directly from the deck. And this card can't be used as link material for the rest of this turn, so it's good you can't keep link climbing. If this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed by battle, so this kind of has that illusion battle protection effect that I wish all of them had just to make it simpler. And then it also has an effect that if a card is special summoned from the spawn trap zone to the monster zone, you can target a spell trap card on the field and destroy it. This could also see some use in certain strategies that are summoning out from the spawn trap zone. So we could see this with Snake-Eye, summoning their monsters out to destroy stuff, which is pretty cool. We could see this maybe in Centurion to destroy spawn trap cards on the field, since their cards will special summon out from the spawn trap zone. So I think there's some pretty interesting things here that you can do. So we have the Silhouette. And we have the Poplar. So nice thing here is we can use the Poplar to chain block the Silhouette so they can't maybe potentially respond to this, even though it is setting, so it's not searching, so that's nice. And then we get the Silhouette to be able to set. And what this is that if this card is special summoned, you can target a face-up card your opponent controls up to a number of illusions you control to get the effect. And if this card battles a monster, neither can be destroyed, so it also has that protection, which is nice. So, and then both of these are illusions. Alright, so what we're going to do now is also look at the other card that people are playing, so we'll kind of jump to that. Alright everyone, so we're in the second combo video. So this is using the Angel statue Azarune. So this is interesting because it kind of gives you a different option that you can use with this continuous trap. So this one has the effect that when your opponent special summons a monster, while this card is in your monster zone, you can send to the graveyard one continuous trap in your monster zone that was special summoned from the spawn trap zone, negate the special summon, and if you do, destroy that monster. When this card in the monster zone is destroyed by battle, you can destroy the monster, destroy this card. So again, just an interesting card. One thing with this is that you have to summon it out early, so you're prepared for whenever they special summon a monster. So that's important. And also if they try to run it over, that'll destroy their monster as well. So there's a little bit of battle protection there. They can't just run over it to avoid being able to special summon. They'll still at least lose something. So that's pretty nice. The other thing too, it's not an illusion monster, so it won't have that protection or anything, or kind of work well with this. Everyone, this is Editing Max. If you're enjoying the content, hit that thumbs up button, give the video a like, leave any comments if you have any discussions you want to start, and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more of this type of content. Everyone, thanks again for watching the content. I hope you enjoy, and we'll get back to it. I think some pros and cons that we have with these two cards is with this one, you have to special it out right away, where at least with the Silhouhatte trap, you probably won't get this off a lot. I'm assuming you're probably, your opponent won't just set spells and traps unless they have to start plays. So it's going to be kind of hard, I think, to get that top Hare hat destruction effect off when summoning out Silhouhatte, but you at least have more of a chance to do it. With this, you have to summon this out right away, so you're pretty much not going to have any spells and traps on the field unless, this is later in the duel and people are setting cards. So I'd say that's kind of the pro and con for this. Also, that's just a double effect negate with the Silhouhatte, since it counts the top Hare hat and itself as two illusions, where this is a negation for the special summon. So maybe depending on that matchup, that could be more useful or not, depending on the situation. So, but both of these are pretty cool and good options to use. And I think if these are cheap, you should definitely pick these up just because they are probably going to be a good mainstay, especially if anything ever happens to SP, which I don't think it will. But I think this is a very good card to run either alongside it or replacing it if you don't have the money for SP, since it's pretty expensive, and hopefully will get reprinted in the Megatins this year. Alright, so next we're going to go over Yubel combos. So one thing that's really cool with the Fiendsmith engine, and it could be really cool or really bad depending how you're looking at it, is that the Fiendsmith engine actually starts as extension. It could counter different hand traps potentially, it can also be a starter, so it really fits pretty much every aspect that you'd want out of the card. So any consistency hits to the deck really get mitigated from this. If we limit Ash and Wanted, like we've seen in Master Duel or other list, the Fiendsmith engine can access that. Now it does play pretty heavily into negation, you could stop it, but if you don't happen to draw anything, the Fiendsmith engine can get you started, which is pretty cool. And the same thing is true for Yubel as well. So I'm going to show you how you can start your Yubel deck without drawing any Yubel starters and just using the Fiendsmith card. So here we have the Fiendsmith, and we just have, 4 different non-engine cards here: Talons, Ash, Ogre, Infinite Permanence, kind of common cards people might be playing this format. Alright, so we can start with the Fiendsmith. We're going to be able to use that to get Tractus. Tractus will search, and we're searching the Lurie here because this is a really good fabled monster that when discarded special summon, so it lets us link climb. So we're searching it to special summon it out. We're going into the Fiendsmith Requiem. From here, we can tribute Requiem to get the Fiendsmith, and then we can get the other Fiendsmith out of our graveyard, and that will let us go into the second Fiendsmith. So what's crazy about this deck is that it's really easy to get level 6s on the field, so this works really well with Beatrice and DD High Wave King Caesar. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to do Sequentia. Now this is important not to just go into the Beatrice early, because we need to be able to link climb after using Beatrice for the send. So this will let us go into Sequentia. We can use its effect to fuse. We're going to fuse, putting back 1 Fiendsmith and 1 Requiem, and we need a second Fiendsmith still in the grave to bring back with the Lacrimosa. So Lacrimosa will then special summon out the Fiendsmith. That will give us our 2 bodies here, which is really important. We'll go into Beatrice. Beatrice can send. Now one thing you can also do in this combo that's very important, depending on how you're kind of setting this up, is that if you look at the Lacrimosa, it also has a burn effect, which is pretty cool. So if this card is sent to the graveyard, shuffle 1 other light fiend monster from your graveyard into the deck or extra deck and have the 1200 damage to your opponent. So doing this combo to start your plays also burns your opponent in time, which is pretty crazy. So if we look at our graveyard, we actually don't have any other light fiends if we were to just detach the Lacrimosa. So what we want to do is actually send the Fiendsmith first for the detachment, so that when we link away the Beatrice, we'll actually have the burn damage. So from here, we sent our Samsara Lotus. We're going to link into Muckraker, which can bring this card back. And then we'll also get our burn for the Lacrimosa, putting back any of our cards. So here we can either put back the Fiendsmith, or we can put back the Sequentia. Either of these is fine. I'm going to leave the Fiendsmith in the graveyard for a little bit of recursion. Alright, so from here what we're going to do is actually use the Muckraker. We're going to target our Samsara de Lotus, and we just have to discard a card, so that's why you need extra cards in your hand. But again, these are all just cards that would have been dead otherwise, which are just stopping our opponent, not getting us the chance to play. So from here, we can discard one of these. At this point, our opponent hasn't hand trapped us, Talents is probably dead. We can use this to get the Lotus back, and then we can tribute Lotus to get Yubel. If you also feel that maybe they're holding the hand trap for hitting your starter, you could also attribute something else to keep the talents. But here we'll get Spirit of Yubel. Spirit of Yubel will have its effect on summon. That'll let us go for Nightmare Pain. Nightmare Pain can then attribute, we'll destroy the Yubel, letting us trigger the Spirit of Yubel to bring out regular Yubel. And then we also get to search the Eternal Favorite. And then from here we could set Eternal Favorite and kind of have our fusion plays on our opponent's turn, as well as potential protection from Muckraker. So from here we still have 3 hand traps in hand and the ability to go into Yubel plays. So this is pretty good from just, being able to use the Fiendsmith to start your plays. We'll also show what happens if you have a starter and how you can insulate your plays from cards like Nibiru. So in this hand, this is going to be combo number 4. So this is where we're going to be looking at, having a starter in hand plus Fiendsmith. So you don't need to use it to start, we can use it to insulate. So what we'll do is we will start with Fiendsmith, get Tractus, kind of do the same motions here. We'll do Luri. Luri will summon itself because it was discarded. We can go into Requiem. Requiem can tribute itself. That'll give us Fiendsmith. And then from here, we can use Fiendsmith, shuffle back the Luri, and then we can bring out the Fiendsmith. One thing I kind of like about doing the Luri versus the Requiem is Requiem, putting that back will give you kind of the option to do this play again, which is nice. But you can also do is kind of save that for follow-up turns, or if you want to use the equip, if you want to go a different route with the fusion, because you change your mind or you're adapting to what your opponent's doing, you still have the Requiem to equip to it for the fusion card as well. So from here, what we'll do is we just go into High Wave King Caesar. So what's nice about this is that if you look at the amount of summons we did, we have the Luri was the first summon, and that was a special summon. We went to Requiem, which is a special summon, and then Requiem attributed to get the Fiendsmith, which is the 3rd summon. 4th summon is the 2nd Fiendsmith coming out, and the 5th summon is Caesar. So if they tried to Nibiru us here, we can actually negate the Nibiru, and we never even used our normal summon, which is one of the reasons why this card is very strong. And I think unless we see hits to Beatrice or High Wave King Caesar, we're going to really run into some issues after Infinite Forbidden. So from here we can do the Samsota Lotus combo. Lotus into Spirit of Yubel, Nightmare Pain. Nightmare Pain goes into Eternal Favorite, and then Yubel will be summoned out from destroying the Spirit of Yubel, and then from there you can set your Eternal Favorite. Now there's probably other combos you can do with this, but this is just one kind of simple combo you can do off that one card. So again, you're insulated from Nibiru, plus stopping your opponent from other special summons, which could be huge against decks like Pearly or different decks that are special summoning from card effect like Runic. And then you still have the ability to fuse with your opponent's cards, and we had a 2-card combo, so we're gonna have 3 cards in hand still going into our opponent's turn, which is probably hand traps with the way this format's been going. Alright, so next we're gonna jump into the Snake-Eye deck. So again, similar to Yubel, we can actually do the same thing with Fiendsmith, but to actually get starting plays with the Fiendsmith cards for our Snake-Eye cards. So let's say, for example, in a future list, they hit, Snake-Eye Ash to 1, and they put even the Wanted card to 1, which are both really good hits because they hurt the consistency of the deck, which I'm not always a big fan of when it comes to just making decks weaker at what they want to do, versus kind of changing how they play. That's what I prefer, and that's kind of the difference between the OCG and the TCG. TCG generally changes the way the deck plays by hitting like the power cards, where the OCG tends to go after consistency. But one thing with these cards is they're all superior starters. They can be used to extend or start their plays, which makes them very strong. And Snake-Eye Ash is a kind of perfect 1-card combo. And it's always best to start with Ash because then you don't play into cards like Troll if you're trying to search it off cards like Bonfire or other ways of accessing it. So I do think, hitting Ash does kind of limit some of the strength of the deck, and hitting Wanted hurts some of the extension. It lets them draw a card by using Diabell Star. They still have Diabell Star at 3, so they still have 4 cards to get to it. It's still very good, but I think can hurt the deck. So if we have these limitations, you just lost 4 copies of ways to start and extend your plays, where you can replace them with the Fiendsmith package, which is just 1 Sanctus, 3 Fiendsmith, and 1 Lori. It's a 5-card package. You're replacing 4 good cards with 1 not so great card, and you're kind of more or less back to where your deck was in terms of what it can do potentially. So what we're going to do is we will use the Fiendsmith, send that to the grave, get Tractus. Tractus will then get Luri. Luri will discard itself, summon out, we'll go into Requiem. Requiem will tribute itself, we'll get the Fiendsmith, then we'll shuffle Fiendsmith, shuffle Luri, get back the Fiendsmith, we'll go into the Sequentia. Sequentia will shuffle 2 back, we'll do Requiem and Fiendsmith, we'll get Lacrimosa. Lacrimosa will activate, getting Fiendsmith out again. From here we can go into Beatrice, and then instead of sending the Yubel starter, we'll send Snake-Eye Ash. So from here you might be like, how do I get this out? Well, you go into Princess, because Princess is just 2 generic effect monsters. No Firelock, nothing like that. So we can then use Princess to get back our Snake-Eye Ash. And then we can also burn our opponent for the 1200. So this is similar to what we did with the Yubel combo line. Is, detaching Fiendsmith first, and then when we link away, we can use Lacrimosa's effect to burn. So again, we're still burning while also getting to our combo with Princess, which is really cool. Now from here, you are playing into every hand trap, like, any hand trap stopping the Princess or stopping the fusion from being able to, be summoned out by hitting the link for Fiendsmith. That will do it. Nibiru, you play heavily into it, so you are playing into a lot of cards, but again, in a situation in which you couldn't play, you can. And now we can just do the Snake-Eye Ash combo. You have to be careful here because we started with Princess, so when you're fire locked right now, so that's one thing to consider, as well as you don't have the ability to kind of extend through with a second Princess since you already used the Princess's effect. So there are some things that make this different. You can still kind of go through your combo here, using Poplar, getting Island will be able to place the Flame Burst. We can send here the Princess and the Oak. That way we're kind of clearing ourselves from the Firelock. That'll get us Oak out. Oak can bring back the Ash. And then from here, we can link those two away. We can put back the Snake-Eye Poplar here after we link those away. And then what this will do is we can use the Oak and the Flame Burst, sending with Oak's effect to get out of Flame Burst. And now we get to trigger the Flame Burst effect in Graveyard, bringing back Oak and Ash. And then from here, we can link all those away into an Apollousa, and then Flame Burst can put the IP back in the Spell and Trap zone. So that kind of gives us our basic combo. We still have 4 cards in hand here, as well as pretty much everything we'd want for our Snake-Eye board, which is pretty decent. We have the Apollousa with 3 negates. We have the Flame Burst Dragon to bring out the IP that can link into cards like SP. We have Poplar as well as a way to get extension or other plays. If Flame Burst goes to the grave, we have the ability to get other plays going in our graveyard with Ash and Oak in grave. We have all of our hand traps, and we have pretty much everything we need, as well as the Apollousa being protected from card destruction because of IP. So a very good field. And the ability to kind of start your plays without even seeing any of your Snake-Eye cards with just one of the Fiendsmiths. Alright, so next one I'm going to show you, you can obviously do plays where if you do something like we did with Yubel, where you can, if you have Fiendsmith and Snake-Eye, you could go early into the Fiendsmith, make DD Highway King Caesar, and then do your Snake-Eye combos being completely safe from Nibiru, which is nice, even though the Snake-Eye deck can still play through Nibiru through some extent. Just by always having the ability to summon out from the Spell and Trap zone with like a Flame Burst and kind of push through with your Princess and keep making plays. What I'm going to show you here is a way you can actually use Snake-Eye Ash to be able to kind of access your Fiendsmith cards, which I think is kind of interesting, and it does give you some interesting lines to play around cards like Talents or Mind Control, Change of Heart, different things that are going to steal monsters, since Apollousa is a very common thing in the OCG as the M board and in the TCG as well, for different plays we're making. We're seeing people do different lines to kind of play around these cards. Some people making the rank 8 to negate spells, as well as the IP that we've been seeing with the Snake-Eye Yubel Star. So we're going to show a line with this. Now, one thing I don't like with this line is that it plays very heavily into Nib. So the next line I'm going to show you makes a lesser board, but does kind of give you some options with Nib kind of pushing through it still. So we're going to start off with the Snake-Eye Ash. Snake-Eye Ash is going to get Poplar. Poplar is going to summon itself out. That's going to get us the Temple. And then from here, we get the Temple. Temple's going to place the Snake-Eye's Yubel Star. So this is a little different than some combos. The earlier ones would use the Flame Burst to kind of play through cards, but we're using the Yubel Star because it lets us get a monster on field. We're getting another card in the Spell and Trap, so to send later. So it's a very important part of the combo, but this does pretty heavily play into Nibiru and other hand traps. So we're going to send that to the graveyard, and we're going to get our Oak. Oak is going to activate. It's going to summon out the Ash again. And then from here, we'll link these two away. We're going to go into the Moon of Closed Sky. So this is also coming out in Infinite Forbidden. It's a generic light link monster, which lets us get to our Requiem, which access the Snake-Eye, part of the package, being able to get to Fiendsmith. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually use Poplar to place the Snake-Eye Diabell Star back in the spawn trap zone, because it has an effect that while it's a continuous spell, you can target a fire monster in your grave, place in the face of spawn trap zone as a continuous spawn, special summon this out. So it gives us a free body while also getting the Poplar. So it's pretty much like scaling the Poplar back into the spawn trap zone, but we also get the body from the Diabell Star. And so what we're going to do is we place this in the spawn trap zone. We're going to send the Oak and the Poplar, which is why it's important that we're going to have this card here. We'll get Flame Burst. Then we'll go into Requiem. From here, we're still somewhat safe from Nibiru if they're to nib at this point, even though we've already done quite a few summons. They could have nibbed us earlier. But once you get the Flame Burst, you kind of still have that protection to some degree. We're going to use Requiem. Requiem's going to get the Fiendsmith. We can link those away into Sequentia. Sequentia can shuffle back cards. And now this is going to let us go into the Fiendsmith dice area. This requires the Fiendsmith and 2 Light Fiends, so we got to put back the generic Moon Sky of the Closed Sky, as well as Requiem. And this is nice in a very small package because you get your combo pieces back into the extra deck and deck to kind of use again by reshuffling them. So you don't necessarily need multiple copies of these to be able to play and kind of utilize these cards over and over to some degree. So from here, we will then link away into Princess. We'll then be able to use the Flame Burst here. That'll give us 2 of our bodies back. Now, at this point, this is where you're heavily going to get hurt by Nibiru, because now you've used your Flame Burst, you don't have that anymore. The Princess is going to use its effect to special summon out. So at this point, if you get nibbed here, you can't do anything. You'll just have your token, and it'll be pretty big, but that's about it. So from here, we can use the effect of the Sequentia, since it could also be used in the graveyard to equip to a Fiendsmith monster. So we can equip this card. It's going to give it some protection. Your opponent can't target the equipped monster of card effects, so that's nice. And I won't be able to negate this with an imperm or something. And then this has the option that you can negate face-up cards on the field till the end phase up to the total link rating of link monsters equipped to this card. So this is a link 2, so you get to negate 2 cards. This is important here to be able to keep comboing. So what we're going to do is we'll equip that. We're going to use its effect, and we're going to actually negate. So one thing we want to do is negate the Princess, because it's actually locking us into fires. So by negating it, we can keep climbing up into other non-fire link monsters. So what we'll do is we're going to actually link away the Poplar and the Oak to give us our IP. And then from there, we can link away into the Apollousa. Again, giving the Apollousa the IP's card destruction protection. And then from here, the Flame Burst can put back the IP back into the spawn trap zone. So again, this combo really does play into Nibiru very heavily. It's just one hand trap that will pretty much wipe out this entire play. But it does give you the kind of most bang for your buck if you don't think people are playing Nibiru, you don't think your opponent's on it, or maybe you have talent, so if they hand trap you early, you can rip the Nibiru out. There might be reasons to do this line, but I do think there's a safer line you can do, and I'm going to show that. Again, it's not as strong as this line, but it gives you more ways to kind of keep playing through Nibiru, at least to some extent. Alright, so this is going to be the 7th combo. Again, this is going to be showing something very similar to what we just went over, but a way to kind of play through Nibiru to some extent, and the longer they hold the Nibiru, the worse it gets. So let's say they think that you're going to kind of do what you've been doing. So you go ahead, use the Ash. Ash will get Poplar. Poplar will summon itself out. That'll give you the field spell will place. And here we're going to go for the Oak. So this is something that was similar to what Christian Urena was doing when Baron and Savage was out. We're kind of doing the safer play to get to kind of some protection. What we're going to do is we'll send those to the graveyard to get the Flame Burst. From here, then we can link away those 2 into the IP. We have to chain block the Flame Burst with the Poplar. That'll train, and from there we make the Flame Burst chain link 1, Poplar chain link 2. We bring out the Oak and the Ash, being summoned off the Flame Burst. So even though we did use the Flame Burst, at this point, even if we were to get nibbed here, we would still special summon out the Flame Burst, as well as having the IP being able to be brought back to the spawn trap zone to summon out again on the opponent's turn with the Flame Burst, getting follow-up, going into SP, potentially other cards like Apollousa if you can get to another body on field. So different things to consider with that. So from here, Oak is going to bring back the Poplar. We're going to, instead of kind of doing the standard play, we're going to go into the Moon of the Closed Sky, so let us access to the Fiendsmith engine. And again, we still have that protection from Nibiru to some extent to play through it, because we're just going to keep this Flame Burst in the Spawn Trap Zone the whole time. So we're going to Requiem. Requiem will get the Fiendsmith. Fiendsmith will link away with IP and Sequentia, so this will let us do the fusion. I'm going to go for Dai's Area. We're going to link away into the Princess. And this can bring back the Oak. So from here, we're going to equip the Sequentia onto the Dai's Area. And from here, we're going to send the Snake-Eye Oak to the graveyard with Princess. That's going to get us our Flame Burst. Flame Burst is going to scale the IP. So from here, we still kind of have our standard play. We can do, the double negate off the Dai's Area. We have the ability to do Flame Burst, and because if they wait and hold the Nibiru longer and longer, the moment we go into Princess, then we sell the Princess line. We can bring back the Snake-Eye Flame Burst Dragon out, so we'd have 2 on field. You can bring out the IP to link into SP. You can link into Apollousa. Another thing you could have done if we go back. So we went back to the combo. And another thing you could consider doing, which is similar to what we did in the last combo, but the difference is we don't have Flame Burst on the field because we've been keeping it in the Spawn Trap Zone to kind of play through Nibiru to some extent, is you could use the Fiendsmith Dai's Area, negate the Oak and the Princess, allowing you to link into a Apollousa. But again, because we're negating the Oak, we can't use the effect to send, so we won't get that. But what we would get is the Apollousa plus the double negate to negate cards like Talents that they try to steal, plus the other cards we have in our hand, which is going to be 4 hand traps. So that's another line you could do. The line I went for is more focused on kind of the IP, Flame Burst, and Princess Engrave. Because one thing with this is that if you do the Apollousa and the Dai's Area, you don't actually have a fire on field. Now, if your opponent does summon a monster, you'll get the Flame Burst on field and then the Princess is live. But it gives them more ways to potentially play around that, which could be an issue. So that's just one thing to kind of consider. And then the other thing too is once you summon out the Flame Burst, because Flame Burst wasn't summoned out on your turn, you never got a chance to scale the IP Masquerena. So all Flame Burst can really do is summon cards out from your opponent's Spawn Trap Zone, which could be really nice if you're in a mirror match. So this could be definitely a line to consider, where you just negate these 2 with the Dai's Area, go into Apollousa, and then you have the double negate. You have another 2 monster negates off the Apollousa. You have the Flame Burst summon out, and then once Flame Burst is out, you can interrupt your opponent's Spawn Trap Zones in the mirror match, as well as having Princess in the graveyard from the linking into Apollousa. So again, another alternate line you can consider.
Hey everyone, this is Editing Max. If you're enjoying the content and you want to support the channel, you can check out the TCG affiliate link in the description below. It supports the channel and costs you nothing, and you'll just be doing the same thing you normally do when buying cards from TCG Player. If you're new to buying cards from TCG Player, check out my website. I have a section on it that helps out newer people, kind of explaining some aspects of TCG Player, so that way you get the most out of your money and don't kind of fall into any of these kind of weird things that some people do to kind of push up the prices of cards. If you want to become a patron of the channel, check out my Patreon. It's another way you can help support the channel. We have different perks you can check out, like a lot of archetype proxies you can see on the screen. Every week I put a new one out that everyone on the channel can vote on, and then those go to Patreon where you can print out. You can also join for early access. Some videos will be 1 day early access, others that are in a longer series could be weeks out in advance, where you can get the entire thing at once. Everyone on YouTube has to wait week by week for all of the videos to come out. You can also join for a exclusive Yu-Gi-Oh! Reaction series where I watch through the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime and we can have a discussion in the comments and kind of watch through it together as well, plus other perks coming out in the future. Everyone, thanks again for watching the content.
Alright, so this is going to be the last and final combo number 8. So this is going to be something to consider doing in game 2 and 3. And this is going to be, you opened up Fiendsmith as well as access to your Snake-Eye combo. So what we're going to be doing is using that Angel of Tears to kind of search a way to kind of more or less, floodgate our opponent out with some normal trap cards by using the burn effect and the Angel. So what we're going to do is I'm doing the Snake-Eye line first. You could technically do the Fiendsmith first, but that's going to play into more cards. so I want to kind of insulate these from hand traps by going into Apollousa early. So we're going to do the standard kind of Snake-Eye Ash to get into an early Apollousa before even using the Fiendsmith cards. And Snake-Eye Ash gets Poplar. Poplar's going to summon itself out. That's going to search the temple. Going to activate temple. We're going to put Oak into the spell trap zone. Send away with Oak and Ash to the grave. That'll get us the Flame Burst. Again, that plays pretty heavily into Ash. We still have plays you can go into with the Fiendsmith. So from here, we'll link those away, kind of chain blocking into IP. We'll get the Flame Burst in the Spawn Trap using Poplar to place it back, and then we're going to use Oak. Oak is going to be able to summon out the Poplar, and then the Flame Burst also brought out the Ash to get our 3 bodies here. And then from here, we're just going to link these 3 away into an Apollousa, so that gives us 3 negates on the Apollousa, as well as the Oak on field. And Oak can send away the Flame Burst to summon a Flame Burst out. Then Flame Burst will be able to place the IP Masquerena back in the Spawn Trap Zone. So this is just like the standard combo that you would do when you would open up just Snake-Eye Ash and a bunch of hand traps. You would just kind of go for this line here, which is very strong still. So it's a good thing to consider. All right, so from here, what we're going to do is now use the Fiendsmith line. So now we're going to use Fiendsmith. That's going to get Tractus. Tractus is going to get Lurie, discard Lurie, summon out Lurie. And then we'll go into Requiem. Requiem tributes out for the Fiendsmith. And then from here, we'll be able to shuffle the Lurie back, summon out the second Fiendsmith. From here, we'll go into Sequentia. Sequentia will use its effect to fuse. We'll shuffle 2 back. We're doing Fiendsmith and the Requiem. And then, because again, we need the 1 Fiendsmith in the grave to be able to have a target for Lacrimosa. Lacrimosa will special summon the Fiendsmith back out. From here, we can go into our Beatrice line, and then Beatrice can then send Angel Blue Tears. And we're using, again, the Fiendsmith being sent first, because if we send the Lacrimosa, we don't have another Light Fiend in grave. So from here, we can link these 2 away. We're going to link into a Princess, and then that will trigger the burn effect. So Lacrimosa is going to trigger. We're going to put back the link 2 back in, and then we can then use the Angel Blue Tears, and that lets us search a normal trap card. So this card's really interesting. You can banish this card from your grave, set 1 normal trap directly from your hand or deck. And if set from your hand, it can be activated this turn. So you can only use 1 of these effects per turn. This is something we might see Trickstar play with their new support, but also you can access this with Beatrice. So this lets us search cards like Dimensional Barrier, or for us, maybe, the Black Goat Laughs as generic cards. You can also Dimension Grounds. There's a lot of interesting cards, Karma Cut, different things you could use to potentially get. In a lot of cases, Dimensional Barrier is going to be a blowout against a lot of the kind of tier 2, tier 1.5 decks that are trying to combat Snake-Eye. Then from here, what we can do is use the Princess. Princess can just bring anything back, so we want to link away. We'll go into Phoenix, and then from here, we can go into this Atlantis. So this will give us the option to kind of stop our opponent from just attacking over the Apollousa, even though it's 2400, so it's not as weak as the 1600. It's a little bit easier to attack over. But again, we kind of cleared that Firelock we were in. We still have the Flame Burst on field, which can bring out the IP that can link into like SP for a banish. We have the ability to stop our opponent from attacking over. With Atlantis, we have 3 negates on the Apollousa. We have a blowout card with Dimensional Barrier. We also then have the Princess Engraved to destroy a special summon. Fiendsmith can shuffle back cards like the Lacrimosa and pretty much your entire engine's back intact to some degree, since we are only playing the 1 track, just so that's gone. We have a lot of your Fiendsmith lines potentially for follow-up and getting bodies on field, which can be nice. So we have some really interesting stuff here, different bodies for the link level 1s to be able to go back off the Flame Burst if that goes to the grave for follow-up. So we have a lot of really interesting options here that we can use to kind of beat our opponent. And again, this is very scary game 2 and 3, since you could kind of search for the kind of trap blowout that you need, and you can also insulate it with the Snake-Eye cards from Apollousa, with the only thing really being able to stop it at that point is Imperm, since any monster hand traps are going to get negated. Alright everyone, again, these are kind of the cards we are looking at and using. I hope, seeing these combos visually, kind of discussing through them, some maybe issues to consider if you're trying to use the Fiendsmith, dies area, for its ability to set cards like Talents, some things to consider, for altering those lines, different ways that the Fiendsmith engine kind of helps out a lot of these really strong decks, making them really good. So again, I think if we don't see some early hits to Beatrice or DDD High Wave King Caesar, which sucks for BA and the DDD deck, to lose these cards. I think the meta post Infra Forbidden is going to be kind of rough because the best decks in the game, even if they get hit, you know, like Snake-Eye, are still going to be able to play using a lot of these cards. And again, you have a very small, compact Fiendsmith engine that you can play, you know, being a total of 6 cards, 5 cards if you're just doing Tractus, Lurie, and Fiendsmith. And with the Fiendsmith being able to recycle cards, if you play a second Tractus, you know, you could kind of do a lot of those plays again. So very scary support that we're getting and the way they help out the decks and everything they can do. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. You know, did you like the combos? Is there any other combos I haven't done that you're interested in and that you think are really cool? Let us know, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.